On a blistering July afternoon in 2021, the serene facade of suburban life in the small town of Oak Ridge was violently ripped apart. Jonathan Miller, a well-respected financial advisor known for his unwavering work ethic and community involvement, and his wife Clara, a vibrant 43-year-old part-time yoga instructor celebrated for her infectious personality, seemed to epitomize the ideal couple. Their seemingly perfect marriage, the envy of their neighbors, was about to be exposed for the facade it truly was. Next door lived the Hartleys. Linda, a widow who had moved to Oak Ridge with her 19-year-old son Ethan following the death of her husband, George Hartley, respected engineer. Ethan was a college sophomore, home for the summer, and the Hartleys, while more reserved than most, had found their place in the community. They were generally liked by their neighbors, who had no inkling of the impending tragedy that would intertwine their lives with the Millers in the most catastrophic way. Jonathan Miller had always been driven by ambition. Born in rural Kansas to working-class parents, he had clawed his way up the social ladder with relentless determination. By his early 30s, Jonathan had established himself as a rising star at a prestigious financial firm. His colleagues admired his sharp analytical mind, and his clients appreciated his no-nonsense approach to wealth management. Meanwhile, Clara, previously known as Clara Williams, had a different trajectory. The daughter of a college professor and an artist, Clara grew up in a household that valued creativity and self-expression. She studied modern dance at the university, aspiring to a career on stage. However, a knee injury in her senior year derailed those plans, leading her to pivot towards yoga and wellness coaching. Their paths first crossed at a charity gala in 2003. Jonathan, already successful but socially awkward, was immediately drawn to Clara's vivacity and charm. For Clara, Jonathan represented stability and the promise of a comfortable life that would allow her to pursue her passions without financial worry. They married a year later in a lavish ceremony that was the talk of their social circle. The early years of their marriage were indeed filled with happiness and fulfillment. Jonathan's career continued to flourish, and he took pride in providing Clara with the life he felt she deserved. Clara, in turn, embraced her role as a corporate wife, hosting elegant dinner parties and attending social events that were crucial for Jonathan's networking. She also threw herself into her yoga practice, finding fulfillment in helping others achieve balance and inner peace. But as time went on, the cracks in their seemingly perfect life began to surface. Jonathan's work hours grew longer, his ambition driving him to pursue ever bigger deals and clients. He was rarely home before 9 p.m., and even when he was physically present, his mind was often elsewhere, constantly checking his phone for emails or market updates. Clara, now approaching her 40s, found herself increasingly restless. The yoga classes and charity committees that once provided a sense of purpose now felt hollow. She began questioning the choices that had led her to this point, wondering if she had traded her dreams for a gilded cage. Couples' ongoing struggle with infertility added another layer of strain to their already fragile relationship. By the summer of 2021, the Millers' marriage was a delicate facade. Externally, they appeared to be the golden couple. Jonathan continued to excel at work, recently closing a major deal that positioned him for a partnership, and Clara's yoga classes were more popular than ever, her students drawn to her warmth and apparent serenity. Yet behind closed doors, they were virtually strangers. Conversations, when they occurred, were perfunctory and focused on schedules and social obligations. Physical intimacy had become a rare occurrence, each touch laden with unspoken resentments and unmet expectations. Neither Jonathan nor Clara was willing to confront the emptiness that had grown between them. It was easier to maintain the illusion, to go through the motions of a happy marriage, than to acknowledge the growing chasm. Little did they know that this unspoken divide was about to become the catalyst for a tragedy that would not only shatter their lives, but also disrupt the entire community of Oak Ridge. The Hartleys had moved into the house next door in 2016, after George Hartley's death from a prolonged illness. Linda, a soft-spoken librarian, had struggled to adjust to the affluent suburb after leaving their modest home in St. Paul. The move was necessary to escape the memories that lingered in their old house, but the upscale neighborhood felt foreign to her. She found solace in her books and in tending to her garden, which soon became the envy of the neighborhood. Little did they know that this unspoken divide was about to become the catalyst for a tragedy that would not only shatter their lives, but also disrupt the entire community of Oak Ridge. The Hartleys had moved into the house next door in 2016 after George Hartley's death from a prolonged illness. Linda, a soft-spoken librarian, had struggled to adjust to the affluent suburb after leaving their modest home in St. Expo. The move was necessary to escape the memories that lingered in their old house, but the upscale neighborhood felt foreign to her. She found solace in her books and in tending to her garden, which soon became the envy of the neighborhood. Ethan Hartley, a lanky teenager when they moved in, had been awkward and introverted. His transition to a new school was difficult, and he often faced ridicule for his second-hand clothes and quiet demeanor. During this time, Jonathan Miller had taken Ethan under his wing, offering him a job mowing lawns and doing odd jobs around the neighborhood. Over the next few years, Ethan grew into a handsome young man, his natural intelligence finding a meaningful outlet in his computer science studies at university. Despite his newfound confidence, Ethan remained deeply devoted to his mother, frequently coming home to support her emotionally. It was during one of these weekend visits in early June that Ethan encountered Clara in a new and unexpected light. Linda had always appreciated the Millers' kindness, especially Clara's efforts to include her in neighborhood activities. However, she was unaware of the complex emotions brewing beneath the surface of her son's polite interactions. The spark that ignited the affair between Clara and Ethan was as unexpected as it was intense. It happened on a balmy evening in early June during one of the Millers' renowned summer barbecues. Jonathan was busy holding court near the grill, regaling his colleagues with tales of his latest financial triumphs. Clara, feeling isolated amidst the crowd, retreated to the quiet of the pool house to replenish the ice bucket. Ethan, reluctantly dragged to the party by his mother, sought refuge from the noise and social pressure. When Ethan entered the pool house, he was surprised to find Clara struggling with a large bag of ice. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something shifted. Ethan moved to help her, their hands brushing as they worked together. The brief contact ignited a spark that neither could ignore. Clara thanked him with a voice that was unexpectedly husky, while Ethan found himself stammering in response. This seemingly innocent encounter set the stage for a series of events that would soon spiral out of control. Over the following weeks, Clara and Ethan manufactured reasons to spend time together. Clara asked Ethan for help with her laptop. Ethan offered to assist in her garden. Each interaction was charged with an undercurrent of attraction that both tried to suppress. Their first kiss occurred almost a month after the barbecue. Ethan had been helping Clara set up for one of her yoga classes in the park when a sudden summer storm erupted. Seeking shelter under a nearby gazebo, they laughed and held each other close as the rain poured around them. The warmth of their shared laughter and the intensity of the storm led Clara to act on the desire she had been suppressing. She leaned in and kissed Ethan, igniting a passionate and reckless affair. As the summer progressed, their relationship escalated. They met in secluded spots around town, back row of the local cinema, hidden corners of the public library, and, most dangerously, within the confines of the Miller home when Jonathan was away. Each encounter left them craving more, the age difference and moral implications forgotten in the heat of their stolen moments. Clara felt rejuvenated, rediscovering aspects of herself she thought were lost. Ethan, intoxicated by the thrill and the taboo nature of their relationship, became increasingly involved. However, as July approached, the strain of maintaining their secret became more evident. Close calls became frequent, including a near discovery by a neighbor and a suspicious look from Linda whenever Clara's name was mentioned. Guilt began to weigh heavily on both Clara and Ethan. Ethan struggled with the knowledge that he was betraying Jonathan, a man who had been nothing but kind to him. Clara found herself increasingly tangled in lies to her husband, each deception adding another crack to the foundation of her marriage. Despite the mounting risks and guilt, Neither was willing to end the affair. They were ensnared in a whirlwind of passion and need, blind to the devastating consequences that loomed. July 15, 2021, dawned hot and humid with a storm brewing on the horizon. It was a Monday, and Oak Ridge stirred to life as its residents prepared for the week ahead. For Jonathan Miller, the day began like any other. He rose early, donned his impeccably tailored suit, and left for the office before Clara had even stirred from sleep. Clara awoke later, her mind racing with plans for the day. Jonathan had mentioned the night before that he would be working late due to a crucial client dinner. For Clara, this presented an opportunity. She texted Ethan, suggesting he come over in the afternoon. Ethan, who had been grappling with his own conflicted emotions, saw this as a chance to end the affair face to face. The day passed slowly for both. Clara attended her morning yoga class, her usual serenity replaced by a palpable anxiety that her students noticed. Ethan struggled to focus on his work, his mind drifting to thoughts of Clara and the conversation to come. At 2:30 p.m., Ethan made his way to the Miller residence, glancing around to ensure no neighbors were watching. Clara greeted him quickly, her face flushed with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Ethan began to express his intention to end things. Clara, driven by a desperate need to feel desired and overcome by emotion, interrupted him with a passionate kiss. Despite his internal conflict, Ethan found himself unable to resist. The affair resumed in the privacy of the Miller's bedroom, where the emotional intensity built up over weeks culminated in a reckless and impassioned encounter. The pair was so engrossed in each other that they failed to hear the sound of Jonathan's car pulling into the driveway. Jonathan returned home earlier than expected. The business dinner had been postponed, and he decided to surprise Clara with a gift, a symbol of his gratitude for her support. As he entered the house, he was puzzled by the unusual quiet. The oppressive heat outside seemed to have seeped into the house, intensifying the feeling of foreboding. He called out for Clara, his voice echoing through the empty rooms. Jonathan made his way to their bedroom, a place that had once been a sanctuary of intimacy and love, but was now the stage for a devastating confrontation. He flung open the door to find Clara and Ethan entangled in the sheets, their expressions a mixture of guilt and shock. The sight shattered Jonathan's world in an instant. His mind, clouded by a blind rage and heartbreak, lost all semblance of reason. Without a word, Jonathan stormed into the room, his eyes blazing with fury. Clara and Ethan scrambled to separate, but the damage was done. Jonathan's wrath consumed him as he grabbed a heavy crystal bookend from the nightstand. In a frenzied state, he swung it at Ethan, whose attempts to protect himself were futile. The bookend struck Ethan with a sickening thud, and he collapsed, blood pooling around him. Clara, paralyzed with shock and horror, tried to intervene, but Jonathan's rage was uncontrollable. The brutality of the scene was beyond anything she could have imagined. Jonathan's actions were driven by an explosive combination of betrayal and rage, and the result was fatal. Ethan, who had come to the Miller home in search of resolution, had been met with an unthinkable end. As the commotion reached the neighbors, calls were made, and soon police and emergency services arrived. The once peaceful Oak Ridge was now a scene of chaos and despair. Jonathan, still holding the bloodied bookend, was found in a state of shock. Clara, her face streaked with tears and her mind racing, was quickly questioned by authorities. Linda Hartley, who had been enjoying a quiet afternoon, was blindsided by the phone call that informed her of Ethan's death. Rushing to the Miller residence, she found herself facing the unimaginable. Paramedics, having arrived too late, declared Ethan dead at the scene. Linda's grief was palpable, her anguish compounded by the suddenness of the tragedy and the loss of her only child. The investigation into the Miller household's events was swift and thorough. Neighbors and friends were interviewed, and the details of the affair and the circumstances leading up to the violence were gradually uncovered. The media, eager to capitalize on the sensational nature of the case, reported on every salacious detail. The story of the Millers' seemingly perfect life crumbled under the weight of scandal and tragedy. Jonathan Miller was charged with second-degree murder, a charge that reflected the brutal nature of his crime, but also acknowledged the complex emotional factors at play. Clara, though not legally implicated in the murder, found herself the center of public scrutiny. Her affair with Ethan and the subsequent events were laid bare for all to see. The trial, which began in the autumn of 2021, was a media spectacle. The courtroom was packed with reporters, curious onlookers, and community members eager to witness the unfolding drama. The prosecution painted Jonathan as a man consumed by jealousy and rage, driven to violence by the double betrayal of his wife and the young man he had once mentored. They argued that Jonathan's actions were premeditated, fueled by an emotional and psychological turmoil that had been simmering for months. Witnesses, including Clara, were called to testify, and the courtroom heard intimate details of the Millers' troubled marriage and the affair's impact. The defense, however, portrayed Jonathan as a man overwhelmed by a perfect storm of personal and emotional crises. They argued that Jonathan's extreme reaction was a result of an unmanageable psychological breakdown, exacerbated by years of stress and marital dissatisfaction. Expert witnesses testified to Jonathan's mental state, and the defense's narrative focused on the pressures that had contributed to his violent outburst. The investigation into the Miller household's events was swift and thorough. Neighbors and friends were interviewed, and the details of the affair and the circumstances leading up to the violence were gradually uncovered. The media, eager to capitalize on the sensational nature of the case, reported on every salacious detail. The story of the Millers' seemingly perfect life crumbled under the weight of scandal and tragedy. Jonathan Miller was charged with second-degree murder, a charge that reflected the brutal nature of his crime, but also acknowledged the complex emotional factors at play. Clara, though not legally implicated in the murder, found herself the center of public scrutiny. Her affair with Ethan and the subsequent events were laid bare for all to see. The defense, however, portrayed Jonathan as a man overwhelmed by a perfect storm of personal and emotional crises. They argued that Jonathan's extreme reaction was a result of an unmanageable psychological breakdown, exacerbated by years of stress and marital dissatisfaction. Expert witnesses testified to Jonathan's mental state, and the defense's narrative focused on the pressures that had contributed to his violent outburst. Clara's testimony was heart-wrenching. She described the unraveling of her marriage and the profound sense of isolation that had driven her into Ethan's arms. She spoke of her regret and the devastation she felt over the loss of Ethan and the destruction of her life with Jonathan. Her candor in court revealed the deep wounds and regrets she carried, and the community watched in stunned silence as the pieces of the tragic puzzle fell into place. Linda Hartley, bereaved mother, provided a poignant and dignified presence in the courtroom. The quiet strength and the depth of her loss were evident in her testimony. She spoke of Ethan's bright future and the void left by his absence, emphasizing the personal toll of the tragedy on her and the broader community. In the end, the court sentenced Jonathan Miller to 18 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 12 years. The verdict was met with mixed reactions. Some felt that the sentence was lenient, given the brutality of the crime, while others believed it was a fair reflection of the mitigating circumstances surrounding Jonathan's mental state and the emotional turmoil that had led to the tragic event. The aftermath of the trial left Oak Ridge a changed community. The Millers' home, once a symbol of success, stood as a grim reminder of the fragility of appearances and the devastating consequences of hidden turmoil. Clara, having lost her marriage and her place in the community, left Oak Ridge to seek a fresh start, far from the reminders of her past. Linda Hartley, though devastated, found solace in the support of friends and a new sense of purpose in advocating for victims of violence. Her journey through grief and loss became a testament to resilience, and she used her experience to help others affected by similar tragedy. As the years passed, the story of the Millers and the Hartleys became a cautionary tale in Oak Ridge, a reminder of the darkness that can lie behind the most polished facades and the profound impact of betrayal and rage. The tragedy, etched into the fabric of the community, served as a somber reflection on the complexities of human relationships and the often unseen struggles that can lead to devastating consequences.